Hi and welcome, Todd Cahill. You're listening to the It's Not Out There, but It's In You podcast, where on this podcast we talk all about the battles that we all face in our life and really how the battles that we face affect us and how we can think differently about each battle and start redefining its meaning so we can start relinquishing its power over us. See, it's a choice you have to make every day to become the best you. So we want to help you return to the battle at hand, the issues that you face, redefine what their meanings are, and then repeat the cycle over and over in order to keep winning the battle that you face. So stay tuned. So glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Hey and welcome, this is Todd Cahill and you're listening to It's Not Out There, It's In You podcast, where we talk all things you versus you, and the biggest battle that we all face is within ourselves. My name is Todd Cahill. I'll be your host for today. This is episode 8, and this title of the episode is You versus Your Relationships, and we have a special guest speaker that I'm super pumped. We flew her out all the way from our bedroom. This is my beautiful wife, Kristen Cahill, and she is here. And before we get into you versus your relationships, of course, I had to coerce her. I had to beg her. I had to pay her money to be. I'm just kidding. She is here, and we're so excited to have her, and really honored that she's going to be sharing some of her background, and we're going to be dissecting even our relationship and how we met. And I'm so excited about my book coming out February 19th. It's going to be coming out in Barnes & Noble. It's going to be coming out also on Amazon. You can actually pre-order a copy of it right now. And I'm so excited for you to read this book. And we have 12 battles. And the subtitle of the book is 12 Ways to Kick Your Own Ass and Win. And I don't know about you, relationships definitely can kick your ass. And they can be the greatest thing in the world, and they can also be the worst thing in the world. So we want to dive into this, and I really couldn't think of anyone better than my own wife to be side by side with me in this discussion today of really what the challenge is dealing with and being not only in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a family member, but being even married to your spouse and the dynamics of that. We actually work together in so many different ways. I mean, literally, we do everything together. She's my best friend. I'm hopefully her best friend. I'm not sure, though. The dog, our Luca, really probably might take precedence over me. But no, we just have an awesome family, and we definitely been through some ups and downs. So we kind of want to be also open and vulnerable to all of the listeners out there to let you know that we're not perfect and nobody's perfect. And we actually got married about 2 years ago. We've known each other for 4 years, and it's definitely not been a perfect journey, but we have learned so much together. And that's what we want to bring today is just, I'm excited to interview you. So Kristen, without further ado, my beautiful wife who has loved me unconditionally, I so appreciate you, and thank you so much. And it's an honor for me to personally invite you on my podcast today. Thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's so good to be here. Flew me in from the opposite side of the room? Yes. It's going to cost you a dinner later, mister.
All right.
No, but I'm really happy to be here with you and share some of our story, and let's get this party started.
Well, for a lot of people that obviously don't know your story and they might not know our story, let's start with you personally as an individual before marriage and before being married to me. Tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, your family, and that way our listeners can get to know you a little bit.
7 years ago, I was born in the lovely Rockford, Illinois, Swedish-American hospital, by the way. So I've sorry about the snow, by the way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you moved here for me. But anyway, I have lived here all of my life in Illinois. I would say that I'm a four seasons kind of gal. You can take the girl out of the Midwest, but you can't take the Midwest out of the girl, if you know what I mean. I love living here. Been here my entire life. I have a large family, large Italian-Swedish family, half Italian, half Swedish. Really close to my family. I have 3 siblings that I can't do life without. I absolutely adore all of them, and 3 loving parents, my father, my mother, and my stepfather. I just really love them. Really tight, close-knit family, and I'm really lucky to have them.
Absolutely. And so you got married to me at what, 20, you're 30? No, 31? What was the age you were married? Was it?
We were officially married 31, but I met you when I was the tender age of 29.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Midwest. So obviously, me and you kind of grew up similar, Christian backgrounds, Christian families, and a lot of our friends got married, including myself. My first marriage very early in my early 20s, and me and you both agree that if anyone gets married in their early 20s, they're probably borderline crazy or maybe forced into it. But I didn't know who I really was until early 30s, and
neither did I.
And neither did you. But tell us a little bit about your background in relationships, period, your attitude towards it, kind of your growing up, and maybe what, not maybe just your parents, but society or church or anything like that kind of put on you, and how you kind of rebelled, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, but just like decided like maybe that's just not for you to get married, have kids early on in your early 20s.
Well, like you said, I grew up with a very tight-knit family, and, relationships are everything to me. Whether it's a best friend or, my parents, siblings, I put a lot into my relationships. And I did grow up in the church, and I loved serving in the ministry, and I loved that part of, relationships and pouring into the junior high ministry. I did that for a long time. And, then as I started getting older, some of my friends kind of married off in the church. Most of my friends at the time got married, between 20, 21, 22. And I was just trying to figure out who I was. And I kind of felt the pressure a little bit to get married in my early 20s. And, there was something inside of me that said, I didn't want it. And I wanted to, explore different things, figure out who I was, make some mistakes. Not that I was headed for the mistakes. Obviously, I'm 33 years old now, and looking back, there were a few mistakes that I made that I wasn't looking for, but they happened just with age. But I'm glad. I'm happy for those years that I figured out who I was, because if I would have let social pressures and what I had been told by everyone else, you have to get married at a certain age, have kids by a certain age. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what the Midwest mentality is. Right out of high school, you date around for a couple of years, you get married, then you start having children. And, I love that a lot of my friends chose that path. It just wasn't that one for me. And I was very careful with relationships, in regards to getting married. I mean, I had a few boyfriends. Hard to believe that I had anyone before you, but I did. And I learned a lot in those relationships, and I'm grateful for them, but, they really shaped me into who I really was. And I learned more actually about myself than I did, and found out about what I wanted, and found out who I was through those relationships. And I'm sincerely glad I waited till 31 to get married.
Yeah. And you're, obviously just not just talking about significant other, but you've always been a relationship oriented person, right? I mean, how important, I know you're half Italian and everything, if that has anything to do with it, but how important is relationships to you just growing up in general, friends and your family? There's a big reason that, well, my kids are here too in Illinois, but I mean, obviously you have all of your family here and they're just down the road, and you have a very tight-knit family, very strong relationship with your father, a very strong relationship with your stepdad and your stepmom. I'm sorry, your mom, not your stepmom, but your mom.
Right.
My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, stepfather-in-law. Great family, beautiful family. I'm very lucky and fortunate to have married into a wonderful, just incredible family of yours. But just, I know relationships are everything to you. Why is that?
It's just kind of who I am. It's kind of hard to say, why are they everything to me? It's just people are everything to me. That's why I think that I have such a tight-knit group that's smaller, because I honestly care about what happens in everyone's life. I care about their success. I care about their failures. I care about everything in between. I just like showing up, and I think that just means the world to me when I can, put a smile on someone's face, or help them through a problem or an issue, or, just support them in whatever journey that, they are going through. And for me, I have a very, very empathetic heart. So when I care deeply. When someone cries in my presence, I cry with them. Someone laughs in my presence, I laugh with them. And, maybe it is being Italian, and maybe it is being just me, but I just, from a very young age, relationships are are just everything to me. I think that's the only lasting thing in this world. And, according to me, houses can fall away, money can come and go. A lot of things in this world can come and go, and relationships, they're so lasting. They're so, you invest in someone, you invest in a relationship, and, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a return. It's not a perfect return, but it's life. And for me, relationships and pouring into them is a life well lived.
Let's talk about that, because I have heard this many times. I've always liked this saying, is relationship equity. Are you building relationship equity? Because a lot of people build, financial equity, whether it's a home, whether it's an IRA Roth or an investment account. But, in your life, obviously you just stated it's important to build that relationship equity. Even without knowing you're definitely not someone that says, kind of what's in it for me. You've been there for so many of your friends and family. And of course, here comes me. And of course, I'm divorced. I have 3 kids, and you definitely took a chance on me to even go on that first date, knowing all that information. We'll get to that in a second, kind of how we met and stuff and how that all transpired. But how important it is for you to build relationship equity. And if someone is listening right now and they're just maybe had some messed up relationships and they just feel like they don't have that relationship equity, how can somebody build that up in your personal opinion, in your perspective?
I think it's just being real and honest and authentic with people. Obviously, we talk about deposits, and I've used this language with you and with so many people because a lot of people care more about the deposits they make in their bank account than they do in other people's lives. And, like I just said, bank accounts fluctuate. It's like a game of Monopoly. You're up, you're down. But I just feel like when you show up for somebody, when you pour into somebody, when you listen to somebody, when you're there for somebody, it's just, you make a connection that's just, it's so real, it's so lasting, and it starts by caring. You want to have a friend, be a friend. That's the advice that I would give to anyone out there. If you want to have relationships, strengthen relationships, just show up for people, be there at their worst moments, be there at their best moments, and everything in between. And I'm not saying having, a huge amount of friends. I have acquaintances and friends, people that I, just know and see every now and again. Then I have my core knit group of people, because obviously you can't stretch yourself that thin.
Mm-hmm.
You can't care that much about, not that you don't care, but investing that amount of time into so many people, you do have those select few, but just show up, have a friend, to have a friend, be a friend, and just be your most authentic self. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. I'm as quirky as they come. People look at me like, oh, she's got it all put together and blah, blah, blah. You spend 5 minutes with me, you know that I am awkward. I am
clumsy.
I can be a klutz, but I love that about me. People are always like, oh, where'd you get that bruise? Well, the doorknob again.
It wasn't for me, I swear.
Doorknob.
Tons of
They're
bruises.
mean. But
Yep.
yeah, just be yourself, and the people that love you will just stick around. They'll be like, hey, I like this human. Let's go do some life.
Absolutely. Well, let's kind of transition. What I like to talk about is how we met, for all the viewers, listeners, just to know, not too long, but just a little bit about our story and how we met and how things actually transpired so quickly. And then I want to talk about fighting for your relationships. So I'll share my kind of view, just so everyone knows, I'm a divorcee, and I actually got a divorce about 5 years ago. Never thought I'd ever get a divorce in general, but early in my 20s, found out I was having a child, and what's the right thing to do is better get married, better step up, as a man. So I ended up having 3 kids, married 9 years, and ended a toxic relationship, and just kind of found my single life and kind of enjoying that life about a year later. And I was living in Las Vegas, and of course, wanted to and always wanted just a partner, a real true partner, not just a lover, not just a wife who, stay-at-home wife or something like that. I wanted truly a best friend. I wanted it all. I truly did. And maybe I was a little selfish and stuff. And I kind of really evaluated my past relationships, some of the things that I did wrong, some of the things on how I was wronged. And I just really started writing a list and kind of meditating And true story, and it sounds kind of weird, but literally 24 hours before I inboxed Kristen, I prayed. I was crying. I was literally moving out of this dream home that I bought, and I was all by myself, and boxes all packed up and ready to go. And just I was so mad, not because I was moving out of this dream house, but I was just so mad that in my early 30s or almost mid 30s, I did not have the love of my life, and I've always wanted that. So literally, I cried out to God, and I'm like, please, God, if it's your will, if it's meant to be, I'll listen, I'll do whatever I need to. And of course, I didn't really want to date around so much and stuff like that. That's just not my personality, just to go date around. And then all of a sudden, about 24 hours later, I posted journaling. I was journaling and just taking it all in and writing. And I just made a post. And I know Kristen was liking my stuff, but she never commented. And I knew of her, but we never really had like a conversation. And I just knew she was a very pretty girl, and she was in the Illinois area. I think, I was Rockford or, around that area. And she commented, and I'll let Kristen finish the story. So, after she commented, I inboxed her, and she thinks that I lied to her or was playing a game, but I really thought she might have been engaged. So Kristen, you can take over, okay? You can tell it better than I can, babe.
You tell it so coolly. So just a quick 5-minute background, 2-minute background, 30 seconds, however long I feel like speaking. My background with relationships is I think I was inauthentic to myself. I was always sort of adapting to who the other person was, wanting to be their version of perfect, wanting to be their version of who they wanted, and not being true to myself. And that really never worked out. I would say one of the highlight complaints out of my previous relationships were you're way too strong. You've got your head in the clouds. You have all these ideas of being an entrepreneur, get your head out of the clouds, stick your nose down, work. You're not good enough. You're not educated enough. I heard insults upon insults. I'd been in relationships where I'd been cheated on, and that was a horrible thing. Or distrust, or it just, nothing ever clicked. Nothing ever worked. It was a lot of pain. And, I too, the crazy thing is there's no way that our relationship was not God ordained, because a couple of months before Todd prayed that prayer, I prayed something similar. And I was just fed up. I was fed up with myself. I was fed up with settling. And I just prayed. I said, God, my picker is broken. I was like, obviously I can't pick them. I'm almost 30 years old. I'm really sick of doing things my way. And I said, you know what? Just God, bring in the guy that you have for me in your own unique way, because I give up. I'm done. I'm not gonna do it my way anymore. So a couple of months before I met you, honey, I just had the time of my life. I wasn't dating anybody. I was single, like not texting anyone, not calling anyone, really enjoying time with friends and family, just getting back to myself. And then here comes along this Facebook message, and obviously I had been liking his post on Facebook, because when you girls out there, you know what it's like. When you go through breakup after breakup, you're finally like, girl power. I don't need a guy. I don't need a man. I'm, good to go. So you start resonating with anything positive on Facebook. And so I saw Todd's post. Todd was Mr. Motivating Guy. And I'm like, yes, that's great. Yes, that's awesome. And the one post that I commented on was the journaling post. Now, I have journaled every single day since I was 8 years old. I had a Lisa Frank notebook that I used to write everything in. And to this day, I have every single book that I've ever written in. And when I saw Todd's pile of journals, I commented, how cool that you journal, Todd. I journal too, and blah, blah, blah. Pretty short. So I get an inbox. Mr. Smooth over here says, Smooth operator. So I hear congratulations are in order. Heard you're going to be a bride soon.
Oh, yeah.
Heard you from Rockford, blah, blah, blah. I was like, wait a second, buddy. Obviously, he thought he was super smooth, because if I was engaged, wouldn't that be kind of rude to ask an engaged woman out? I mean, creepy, right?
I am creepy.
So he thought I was engaged. I'd been single for 6 months plus. Never posted about a guy, but I'll let you have that one, since you're so adamant on thinking that you were so smooth. But either way, either I felt bad for the guy, or
but just being engaged doesn't mean you're taken, by the way. So
if the ring's not there yet,
right,
there's still a chance.
Yep, there's still a chance.
You sly dog, you. So, and ended up writing back. I said, no, I'm not going to be a bride soon. I've actually been single for a while. Why your divorce? So that's kind of how it happened. We're from the get-go. I was like, yeah, I picked the wrong guys for 10 years. That's why I'm single, because you were like, why are you single? I'm like, okay, well, why are you divorced? Like, well, I unequally yoked, all these reasons. And I'm like, okay, well, mine's simple. I picked the wrong ones. Easy. So 8 hours later, I was pretending to
messaging,
be...
right?
Of
Messaging,
yeah. Because I pretended to be busy at work. I was a horrible employee, by the way. Horrible. Entrepreneur mind all over the place. So anyway, at the time I was working full-time and spent 8 hours of my workday texting you via Facebook Messenger. And
as soon as you said you were single, I knew it was done.
The confidence on this guy.
Well, we're talking about intention just in a second, but I was very intentional.
That. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. Yeah.
But at first, I didn't know what you really looked like, though. I mean, you were pretty on your Facebook and stuff, but like, you know how that is. If you're on Match.com or something, the women really look good, and then you meet them, you're like, oh,
like, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. Maybe they're not as tall as you thought, or maybe they look
I'm
older.
tall. See, I didn't want to know if you were tall.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll get to that on our first date.
You're real pretty in real life. So.
Thanks. Well, I was a sly person. I gave you my phone number at the end of it because I had to go to a hair appointment.
Right.
And then,
I think I text you right away just saying, hi, this is my number.
30 seconds later. Hey, it's
so
Todd.
So you could save it and marry me and have children, have dogs.
Well, it pretty much happened that fast.
Right.
When you know what you want.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Let me introduce you to my 3 children. And you're going to get
3
married.
minutes later.
Yeah, 3 minutes later. And we're going to get married.
That actually, you gave a respectable time. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. It was
so this guy didn't really, I wish you would have had a map on our first date, because he asked me out to this restaurant. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, for the record, you asked me out for coffee. I said no.
Yeah.
And, I was like,
and I didn't take no for an answer. There's no way.
He did not take no, because he asked me out. After talking with him, and I'm like, I don't even know her story.
From Denver, Colorado to Illinois on a road trip. So I wasn't even in Illinois yet when I was asking her out.
Yes.
I just knew I was going to be there the following week.
Yes. And I honestly did have plans with my sister, and honestly didn't know if I wanted to get into the whole relationship game again. And
sure.
I didn't, at the time I was like, God, I just prayed this a month ago already. Come on. This can't be this quick.
I paid it
and with the guy.
Before.
So what you all need to know is my 2 biggest I nevers in life. Granted, I had a list of requirements, which I'll get to that. But the top one was I'll never date a man that has been divorced, and I'll never date a man with kids. Imagine if I would have stuck to that.
Yeah.
And I said that because I wanted all those experiences to be new for me, and not have them, taken away from me, or those new experiences. But, trust is a big thing for me, and I really liked how in the beginning it was so easy to talk to you. I really felt right away like I could be myself. And our first conversation we had on my sister's porch when I was visiting her, and we talked for a couple hours?
Yep.
A couple hours, and neither one of us are, we hadn't even seen each other in person yet, but, we had just spent a lot of time talking on the phone, and I really liked that. And I left that conversation feeling really positive. And I'm a woman of faith, and I was like, hey, God, if this is what you want, I'm going to stick my toe in the water with this one and see how it goes.
Yeah. And then we went on our first date, had horrible sushi. And
like I said, I bunny trail a lot, don't I? Because I was like, I wish you would have had a map, because I had to take off a half a day at work because he asked me out to go meet him. It was 2 hours away from where I was working at the time. And so, that was a hike. But I got out of the car, and you're like, yep.
That's it. Yeah. And you smelled really good. But anyway, make a long story short, we met, and I was still living in Vegas, and then you came and visited me for about 3-4 months. So we started our relationship long distance, and it did work. And then my kid's mom is from Illinois, so it all worked out really well. So the kids moved back to Illinois to be with them, and I got to see him a lot often. So I was like, God has a plan, and and it's just been great ever since as far as that goes. But after Vegas, I decided to move here. We kind of moved in together. So we went really fast because of certain circumstances and situations. We don't have to get into that now, but kind of moved in, and you were just like, yeah, just move in with me. And I think it was the 4th?
It was our 5th month. We did the back and forth thing to Vegas. I would fly there on the weekends to go see you. And, I loved our time together. Pretty much would cry every single time I get back in the flight. It was, And then we would stay up late nights talking until the wee hours of the morning. And then I would
service.
have to get up at 6 a.m. and go to
I
work.
felt so bad for you.
And
I just got to
almost.
sleep
And then you
in.
get to sleep in, and then I get a text from you at noon. Hey, I just woke up.
I'm going to go work out at the MGM.
Horrible.
And you flew what? You flew the worst airline ever.
I flew Spirit
shout
Airlines
out to
once.
Spirit.
It was terrible as a
The
cattle
worst
call.
ever.
The
Yeah.
worst. I would pack literally, a purse.
Yeah.
But I only flew them once. Come
Yeah.
on, I have a little more class than that.
Right. But you're leaving Vegas, you're coming to Vegas. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. That's how I gained 30 pounds our first year. No
We
joke.
ate out all the time. We
Buffets,
know
you
how to
can't
have
take
fun.
me there.
No.
Anyway.
But, I wanted to step up and being intentional, obviously, moving from the MGM to Rockford, Illinois, takes a lot of love. So I really fell in love with this woman and of course, love the fact that she loved me for who I was. But little did I know how much growth that I would have to go through. So what I want to talk about, babe, is I want to talk about fighting. So I don't want to talk about literally we fight, but I'm talking about fighting for the good relationships and learning how to really get rid of the toxic relationships. So in our marriage, we have gone through pretty much everything a married couple could go through. Even before we got married, we've been through so much with just my ex and the things that I've had to go through and stuff. And we don't have to talk about a lot of it on the podcast and stuff because I don't want to make anyone feel bad, but we have gone through a lot. And I know a lot of people listening have also gone through a lot too. And maybe they haven't recovered from it or whatever happened in their relationship. But talk about just growth for you personally. And then I'm going to share a couple of comments on the things that I've done wrong that maybe you all can learn from, especially the men out there. But talk about just for you personally, babe, the growth that you've had to go through, just, and why me? Why is true love amazing? And why is it worth the fight?
Well, first of all, you were intentional from day one, and that's something that I had not seen in anybody else. You were not playing games. You knew who you were. You knew what you wanted, and you right away made a commitment to me, and that was something that stood out from the rest. You had this great entrepreneur mindset. You were a go-getter. And those were the things that attracted me to you. And those were the things, that drew me to you. And that's why I think we're such best friends. But back to those two biggest I'd never date a man that's been divorced. I'd never date a man with kids. I can't believe I said that before because your children and this marriage has grown and stretched me in ways that I never, ever would have experienced if not for this situation. And, I've had a lot of times where I've cried in the shower because it's been so hard and I've, needed, your love and support. And we've been through so much. So much. And, I just would say to everyone out there, don't ever say I never, don't ever say I'll never be with this person because of X, Y, and Z. Just give it a shot. But back to how it's grown and stretched me, it's just ended up being the best decision I ever made. And sometimes when you're in the thick of, just trauma to your heart, it's easy to walk away. It would have been easier for me to say, this isn't worth it. It's not worth it to stay. It's not worth it to deal with this, but I didn't. And, I chose you and I made a commitment to you, and I'm happy now for the struggles. Now when something happens, we just sort of laugh about it and we're like, okay, well, what can we do about it? But I love all the struggles we've been through.
If you left, we never would have done this podcast.
We never would have done this podcast together.
Exactly. So it was all worth it. But and we're newlyweds still. But let me kind of dive into some of the mistakes that I've made too, because I came with a lot of baggage, and I'm not even talking about my kids necessarily, because obviously kids are not
they're
baggage,
great.
of course.
I love them.
But just like even being divorced, obviously for anyone that's listening that wants to get remarried, or maybe they do remarry and they bring in a mixed family and stuff, I've had a lot of bad habits, and one of my habits is not being very clean. So that's been something that Kristen. Really,
I'm a total neat freak.
Yeah, neat freak. Not crazy.
Not OCD
nothing,
neat
nothing
freak.
OCD, nothing like oh my God, there's a glass of water out. What are you doing, Todd? But it was just more like I really, really, and I still struggle with this, but the way that I love you, Kristen, and the way I love you, babe, is cleaning up after myself, doing the dishes, serving you, of course, the 5 love languages that everyone talks about as a married couple. And I'm also super busy, right? So I'm really focus on work all day, but then I realized, okay, shoot, the kitchen's a wreck, and that's probably what I'm going to be doing tonight, clean up my mess from today. And there's just so many ways to serve your spouse. There's so many ways to show you love your spouse. And there's been times where I didn't have some of that love equity because I was selfish and I did think of myself too much. And at the time, my intentions were, I got to take care of my family. I just got to work. But I neglected the other parts of the family. And I think with, and you can kind of chime in on this, you're obviously not about money.
No.
But some women are, which is nothing wrong with that. But for me, I needed to know what you were about.
Right. And I totally understand that. I mean, I'm not going to say that I was called a gold digger. Heck, I will say it. When people found out, she's like, oh, Kristen's biggest I nevers were I'd never date, a man that's been divorced or with kids. And there were a couple people that called me a gold digger. I'm like, well, I laugh at that because nobody knows me. I could live in a shoebox and be happy with that. I've never been impressed by money ever. But yeah, my love language resides in, quality time and acts of service and, picking up after yourself, showing respect that way. And what was your question?
Yeah.
I was like, I totally bunny trailed there.
But just like, and then understanding my love language too, and just like what's important to me. And that's been a struggle for both of us, for sure.
Yours is words of affirmation.
Yeah, words of affirmation and just respect. I think we all just love to be respected, especially as a man. But again, fighting for the relationship, the book, You versus You, you versus your relationship. So it's not you and your relationships I wrote about, it's you versus your relationship. So obviously if this was toxic, if this was bad, you would have got out of it, I would have got out of it. But there was something through what we went through that was special. And there was a glimmer of hope that we've always had for each other. And I would say, a lot of times people get too busy. What is our favorite thing to do together?
Sleep,
right?
No, our favorite, honestly, the best days that we have ever had. I remember one of them. Do you remember the one that we were in the city? This is before we had a place there. Moved or stayed there for a couple of days and, went bike riding and then went out to a nice dinner and, did, spa appointments and just laughed and spent time together. So we both love to exercise and stay fit. And, hit on each other in the gym, which we often do.
It's always fun.
It is fun. But
so you do spots.
So we enjoy a lot of the same things. We both we love the outdoors. We love Starbucks. We love each other's company. We love comedy. We love laughing. We love overpacking. We love traveling.
Coffee.
But coffee.
Yeah.
I said Starbucks. We should have stock in
But just
there.
in general.
But in general, I think our mindsets are so similar. We have the same faith. We have the same just unlimited potential to do whatever we want. And I think that's something that drew me the most to you. And something that is so worth fighting for in our relationship is to find, they say, opposites attract. Yeah, maybe for a while, but in our situation, it's, you have a goal in mind and I support your goal. I don't bring you down to what you want to do. And then I have a goal and you support my goals and dreams. We're both extremely hard workers with extremely hard work ethics and, and goals. And that's something that, our relationship is never boring, never dull moment with us. Not because, we have this superficial fun relationship. It's because the deep things matter. We're able to communicate and talk and, understand each other and we haven't always gotten it perfect, especially the communication part. That's, the number one thing to work on in relationships is just learning how to communicate to your spouse or significant other or friend. But I would say that I knew that you were worth fighting for, no matter. And most of the things that we've gone through have not been issues with our relationship. They've been outside factors that have done their best to try to, swoop in and kill and destroy us. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And, all of the things we've been through, we will stand up on stage. And I cannot wait to do, our You versus You seminars because we're going to drop it like it's hot. We're going to drop every single thing that we have been through in 1 year and have people say, how
are you still standing?
How are you still standing? Yeah. And what are you doing there? And what kept you there? And it's not just because, physically we have a great life together. Can I say that on air?
Yes.
We're very close in that aspect, but it's a total package. I know our relationship is a total package and you are my very best friend. And, The things that we have are the things that last. And if you strip everything away, if we were penniless, moneyless, slumping on the streets in our robes, they'd be our Ugg robes, and they're very comfortable, by the way.
All right, well, I got you on record now.
Yeah.
So,
No, honestly, we have. We lived in a tiny townhouse when we first met, and now we have a beautiful home that keeps falling apart every 2 seconds. But, we're still here. We have a roof over our heads. We have a beautiful dog, and, he gets more of the attention sometimes. Apologize. But
well, let's talk,
I love our life.
I want to talk about opposites attract just for just a few seconds, because this is something that really rubs me the wrong way. I think for you even, and we don't have to get into it, but you were with people, literally, if you look at your boyfriends in your 20s, they were opposite of you.
100%.
And it was more like, I think in your 20s, whether it's a male or female, I think a lot of us like to rebel against what we even know so that we can be different or whatever it is. But I just can't imagine marrying somebody. I mean, I get it if you're friends and your friend likes to play poker and you don't. I mean, I have friends that hate football and I'm all about football and I'm still friends
like
with
your wife?
Yeah, right. I mean, even you, right? But you don't have to like have everything in common, obviously.
Right.
But I think there is, and to quote Rick Warren, one of my mentors, the purpose-driven life pastor. I mean, if you don't have God in the center of your relationship, it's done. It's the relationship that's never going to last. And if you're already in that relationship, I know that the Bible says you need to stay in that relationship, even if you are unequally yoked, unless, there's other things that happen that are detrimental to the relationship. But just to be a good example for them. But that's number one. And then number two, it's just like, getting along in just the basic, big decisions, how you look at money, how you look at time together. Like if I'm all about never spending time with you.
That would never work for me.
Exactly. It would never work for you. I don't care if I look like I was, a model, the best looking guy on planet Earth, it still wouldn't work for you.
No.
So looks, have little to nothing to do with it in a long-term relationship. I think a lot of people look for the wrong things on social media and dating and stuff like that. I think it really does come down to marrying your best friend. Because you are going to spend a lot of time together.
A lot of time.
And the physical stuff doesn't last. I mean, what?
That you grow in together, you know? So people always say, and it cracks me up, it's supposed to be all hot in the beginning. No. When you go through stuff together and make it through to the other side, that's when, if I can say your sex life, I'm going to say it. That's when that bond strengthens more than ever. And that's just something you grow in. But I would say it's so important to, marry someone and, surround yourself with people that have the same things in common. The core things I'm talking about, faith and religion and money management and time and family. These are things that if I found in my relationships that I differed in all of the major areas, and how I felt versus how the other person felt. Not that the people that I dated were, horrible or wrong. They were wonderful. They were wonderful people. And, I'm still friends with a couple of them. And
wait, what?
Wish them well. Friendly, not, you come out.
Just kidding.
But anyway, I learned so much. I learned what was important to me. I learned what was important on, the things that we really do have to have in common to make a relationship work. And then you can build on things, but then at least when you get in fights and oppositions and everything, you're kind of on the same page as far as, how to get through this or that, or what you think of this or that. And then, yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. And with that said, I want to talk about probably one of the most important topics about me and you, and that's obviously you versus your relationships, is imagine your spouse, imagine even a best friend or a very close person, even if you're single, right? Pulling the best out of you. Right. The best version of yourself, bringing the best version out of yourself. And I know for you have definitely brought the best out of me. And I know there's been times where I question everything, and I even question who I was, and even just, looking in the mirror and saying, look, I do have to change. I do have to make these necessary changes. Nobody else is going to tell me that. And I think sometimes in life, even your friends might not tell you the truth about you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But for you, Kristen, you have always been a confident woman. But it's not overstepping in any way. It's not like you're the man in the relationship and I'm the woman. It's just more you've just been confident and you're able to speak your mind. And because of that, you are very real. And I'm also very strong and you're strong, but we respect each other because we love each other. And I think we're both open. And I know many times you've asked me, how can you change? And I so appreciate that question when you just come to me humbly and just be like, is there anything that you would like me to change? After I talk about things that
so I'm not
perfect.
Yeah. No, I think that's a huge pride thing. And that's something that I've struggled with in the past and even currently, to let my pride down, because it's easy when you know that someone else is in the wrong to just accuse them and point their finger and you're this and you're that. But it's also, you are not a strong, confident person if you can't turn that finger back on yourself and be like, is there anything that I did to make you feel that way? Is there anything I did to hurt you? And what can I do? And that's something that, we have done together. We haven't always gotten that part perfect, but, less of pointing fingers and more of, individually taking responsibility for your actions and, individually owning your stuff, owning who you are, owning when you've made a mistake, and then not repeating it. And that's something I really admire in our relationship is, what do I do when you mess up? Do I remind you of it every single day? No. I think something that's crazy important is forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my last two things to talk about. We're going to talk about forgiveness, and we're going to talk about feeling heard as a woman. So forgiveness, tell me a little bit about your philosophy of forgiveness truly in our marriage.
In our marriage, if someone apologizes, no matter who it is, you forget it and you never bring it up again. Forgiveness is forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't a temporary Band-Aid to put on the situation. Like, I'm going to forgive you in this moment to end this argument. And then when you hurt me again, I'm going to bring it up, all of your past history, which is ridiculous. I think that is the number one killer in relationships. If you remind somebody of their past once they've been forgiven. Honestly, you can't do a thing to change your past. There's not one thing that you can do to change an event, an argument, a word you said wrong. The best thing that you can do is just change your behavior. And, the best I'm sorry is change behavior and not doing the thing that hurt the other person again. And that's something I've been very careful, because it's so easy to damage a relationship by not forgiving someone and keeping a rap sheet of all the wrongs that they've done. But there's no bigger killer in relationships, but you and I have never once done that to each other. And that's something I feel so strongly about, is forgiveness. And when it's forgive and forget, that is what I was taught in my family, is you forget the 3 F's: forgive, forget, and move forward. Because if you don't do any one of those things, it is detrimental to a relationship with, a friend, a family member, and even our marriage. So that's something that is it's tough to do. It's easier said than done to move forward, because, sometimes you're reminded of that thing, but never ever hold someone accountable for a past that they've been forgiven of.
And it's not like you're forgiving me that I'm going out drinking with the friends and I'm driving, while drunk, or I'm cheating on you. And, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, babe, please forgive me. And like, okay, we're not talking about that stuff. I mean, we're talking about, like, if I mess up, if I yell at, you, or I raise my voice, or I do certain things that I'm really sorry for, you're forgiven. But I think there's certain things in any relationship, when you lose trust,
right, you
can forgive, but that doesn't mean you have to stay with a person.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, you can forgive them, but if they're not sorry, if that behavior continues to happen over and over and over, then it's a pattern, it's a choice. It's best to leave that on the floor and move on, because that's something I have done in my past. Is I've also, the opposite side of that is I forgive. And then sometimes I've had people in my life that have taken advantage of that. And then it's taken me a few times to forgive until I just leave the pieces on the floor and, move forward, which, nobody's perfect. Nobody ever gets that entirely right. But yes, the very, very important fact that you brought up, if the best I'm sorry is just change behavior both ways.
Absolutely. Forgive. And I agree with you. Unforgiveness and bitterness are toxic emotions. It's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die.
Right.
Yeah. We definitely got to forgive those that have hurt you and hurt us, and not just for their sake, and you said this, but for yours,
for
ours.
Your own peace.
Yep.
There's nothing worse than holding on to a grudge for no reason. It becomes like a poison. It becomes something that you're used to feeling awful about a certain thing or a certain person, but let it go, because there's peace in that. There's peace in really honestly forgiving and moving past it.
And having toxic emotions, and me and you both know people in our lives that are toxic and have these emotions that they just can't let things go. What that does to somebody's health is just absolutely horrible. I mean, you can literally think your way to disease. You can think your way to being sick and stuff like that.
Your mind is crazy powerful.
Mine is super powerful, and that's what I do on a personal level, professional level, is help people unleash their winning mindset and everything. So let's talk about the last thing here. We'll kind of end this podcast of you versus your relationships. Let's talk about women, okay? You being a woman,
woo, woo.
And all the women out there that are listening, of course, men that are listening to this, if you're married or if you want to get married, or even if you're in a same-sex marriage or same relationship, you have to learn to listen. So
Yes.
How important is it, obviously, for you, for me personally, to have learned that the best thing I can do, which I don't always, probably 90% of the time I fail at this, but when
You're getting better.
I'm actually looking at you, I put my phone down, I'm paying full attention to you, and you're speaking, I'm not interrupting you, and I'm not thinking about my next statement to maybe one up you or make myself look better. What if I'm just listening and nodding my head, understanding it, and even not even saying anything afterward, just kind of being quiet?
Well, there you go. That's that's pretty much how it's done. I don't care if you're a man or woman. Everyone wants to be heard, and that's a chief complaint in a lot of relationships. You're not listening to me. I don't feel like I'm being heard. So yeah, I would say it is crazy important. To give an example of a good exercise, I was at a women's conference once. It was just a day conference for women, and we did this exercise even with woman to woman. You said, you could say a couple different sentences of this exercise was, what did you think of this conference today? And you had to look in the eyes of the person across from you, listen to what they were saying, and then repeat what they said. And say, let me see if I heard you correctly. And interpretation can be different sometimes. Mm-hmm. What you heard versus what they said could be different sometimes, but it was an excellent exercise in listening, because oftentimes, a lot of people listen to just comment on it, or they listen to comment on what they said, or to hold their thought and say what's next, which is why they interject their thought, opinion, comment while the other person is speaking. And so I think that is a huge communication fail, and something that also can hurt relationships. But it's the number one best thing that you can do, to really listen to the person and let them get out what they say, and then have the other person respectfully, give the other person their time and say, okay, this is what I think, this is what I need to talk to you about. What do you think? What comment on whatever you need to say. And just practice listening to one another, because I think that is a chief complaint in a lot of relationships, is just hearing the person out, listening to what they say, because otherwise they don't feel important at all to you. They don't feel like you care. And the best way to show that you care, in my opinion, I've done this and I felt this and I felt that from you, is when you really listen, when you look into my eyes, your phone is down, you're giving me that time and that respect to be like, hey, what you have to say is important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think, coming off this podcast, I think if you're not practicing some of the stuff that you're hearing, maybe there's some self-awareness, because I truly believe self-awareness is key to any change, because if you don't have self-awareness, there is no choice to make a change. So I've been, in this relationship at times where Kristen has said some things and I'm like, yeah, what? I don't agree with that. But then when I really think about what she's saying and I really say, she's right, I do need to change certain things, then I'm going to go seek help, whether it's a therapist, a coach, marriage counseling, a family member that I trust, whatever it is, because that's the way to nourish the relationship, is constantly growing and constantly getting better. And I think also too, this isn't about you versus your health, but when you're not sick and you're not very grateful for your body, but as soon as you get sick, as soon as you get a migraine, you're like, oh my gosh, like I just want my health back.
Right.
Especially if you have cancer, disease, like you can have $1 billion in the bank, but if you have a death sentence and you're going to die in 6 months, obviously you'd give it all up just to live. I think the same attitude needs to go towards your spouse. You need to be grateful for them every day, because you might not have them tomorrow. And there's so many couples that it breaks my heart that they lost a spouse way too early. And of course, we all want the Notebook story, die together, in our old age. But some people do not have that. And some people lose their spouse early and they would give anything just for one more day with them. But then there's also some couples out there that constantly fight. They don't they take for granted what they had. And I love what Tony Robbins says, you'll lose a relationship if you don't go back to how you got the relationship. So whether it's flowers, chocolates, words of affirmation, the love language, little notes.
Post-it notes you leave around the house.
Yeah,
I still have them stuck on the coffee machine. I'm looking at one right now.
Yeah, I need to do more of them, actually. I haven't done it in a while. But kind of going back to the genesis of the beginning of the relationship, and just, if you don't want your relationship to fail, then go back to what you did in the beginning. Because if a relationship does fail, babe, obviously ours isn't, but let's say we love each other, but one of us neglects each other, and then the whole thing falls apart. I mean,
you just stop knowing each other. When you
it's not good.
Stop doing those things, you stop dating. We always date each other, which I like. We always make time for each other. We have had crazy busy schedules, interruptions, you name it, but we've been intentional about our relationship and spending time together and meaningful time together. And if we ever don't do those things, what do? We talk about them. Yeah. We might lovingly or jokingly say, hey, I haven't received a note in a while, or, something like that. But you always have to date each other. You always have to, even date your friends. I mean, heck, I love spoiling my girlfriends and, the same way. And, just pouring into people. You can't neglect people. You just have to be constantly checking in, I think.
Absolutely. Well, hey, babe, I appreciate you being on. And
I could sit here and talk all night.
I know, right? I think we already went an hour.
I'm like, we're done already?
I know. This is fun, huh? You like it?
This is really fun.
Yeah.
I like being on this.
Episode 8. Well, we're looking forward to another 80 to 800 episodes here and on this podcast. If it's not out there, it's in you. I know me and you got some awesome things we're working on that
sure do.
We don't want to share right now, but we will be sharing publicly very soon. Through email campaigns, through social media, about the things that me and you are going to be doing together to help people change their lives.
Absolutely.
In the you versus you battle. And I know you got a lot of things cooking in your brand.
I sure do.
What is the name of it?
La Vita Bella.
What does that mean?
The beautiful life.
The beautiful life. Living that beautiful life.
Or the sweet life, the beautiful life. It can be translated a couple different ways. But either way, I'm crazy excited like I said, like Todd said in the beginning, we do everything together. All of our entrepreneurial adventures, endeavors. Yep. We do together, and so we've got a lot more for you guys out there. We want to turn our story into something beautiful to help you all out there, no matter what you're going through, and to motivate, encourage you, be there for you, and take you on life's journey.
Yeah, so get used to us because you're going to see us a lot. So together.
Hopefully you're not sick of us by the end of this. Speaking of interjecting your senses.
I don't think they'll get sick of us, right?
I don't think so. I hope not.
If they get to really know us and they can see us singing to our dog so much and
please
living life in the robe.
Sing it. Would you please?
No. He's not here.
I will get him to sing his little song to our dog.
We got to show the world how goofy we really are.
We really are.
Yeah, but totally driven too at the same time.
We are
very driven to be the best version of ourselves, and also as
you're
individuals.
my bestie. What can I say?
You're my bestie.
You're my bestie.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you listening in, and if this added any value, could you just do us a favor, take 30 seconds or less and rate this and share it with other people. It literally would take you 30 seconds or less to do that. We really would appreciate it. We want to get this podcast out to the thousands, if not the tens of thousands. And this is only episode 8, so we're on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. So check us out. Looking forward to episode 9 coming soon. Thanks so much, babe, for being on.
Pleasure to be here.
And thanks so much for you all listening. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.